If I reminded you that you are perfect, would you argue me down or step into your perfection? Welcome to Perfect Mode, where there are no excuses, no expectations, and we explore the world without limitations. I'm JClay, rapper, the spiritual teacher, with my co-host Troy Washington, your friendly neighborhood realtor. Let's be real, so let's be perfect. Perfect mode. Everything, anything, 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 perfect. Everything, anything, 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 perfect mode. Everything, anything, 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 perfect mode. Everything, anything, 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 perfect mode. Perfect mode, perfect mode, perfect mode, perfect mode, perfect mode, perfect mode, perfect mode. Everything, anything, 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 perfect mode, perfect mode. Everything, anything, 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 perfect mode. Perfect.
What up? Welcome to Perfect Mode. Welcome to Perfect Mode. And first off, I want to start by saying that we love y'all. We're grateful for the opportunity to be anywhere, sharing our thoughts, the way that we see life, hopefully in helping you realize that you are perfect. And the reason I can say that unapologetically is because I know that you are one of one. You cannot be replicated, duplicated. And the only reason you would say that you're not perfect is when you're looking at somebody else and saying, I'm not them. But guess what? You are you, and that's all you need. And of course, it's yours truly, Troy Washington, your friendly neighborhood realtor. And I have my boy JClay, spiritual rapper and teacher. And we about to get on here and talk about setting intentions. Set intentions, not expectations.
Yes.
Setting intentions and not expectations. Wow.
SINE.
Like, what up, Jay?
SINE. What up? Happy Sunday. Happy perfect day to all the perfect people in perfect land doing the perfect things at all moment, recognizing their perfection and the perfection of others, and just being in it, just sitting in it, experiencing it. And yeah, man, happy Sunday. I'm ready to jump into it.
So the funniest thing is when I see this, when I first saw this topic, set intentions and not expectations, it was like, oh, okay, of course, you already know set intentions and not expectations. But what I found as I was thinking about it, they're kind of jointly set at the same time unintentionally. So when you normally start to set your intentions, your expectations, when I say closely follow, it's like almost in the same breath. And then I started to really think about, okay, well, this is definitely something to talk about because you got to be able to separate and be able to see each for what it was. But what up, Jay, man? Go ahead and let me know what you were thinking about on this topic.
Yeah, man, it's the trap, the expectation trap. So like right now, all is well. We just here, we experiencing life, doing what we do. Everything is good. Then we say one day, you know what? I want to go do something. I want to try this out. I want to see if I can make it at this or build this or create this. And in that sense, you're setting an intention without that expectation. You don't even know if it's possible. You're just willing to try. You're just going for it. But somewhere down the lines, you come up with a plan and you expect this to happen. You expect that, okay, if I do this, this will happen. If I do this, this will happen. That will happen. And when you get there and it doesn't happen like that, it kind of messes up your whole world. You're like, I don't understand. I expected this. They said that if I do this, this will happen. And this is across the board. This is not just for something you create. This could be for jobs. This could be for, your career, schooling, any competitions you're in, like all of this. And when you set that expectation and believe in the expectation, it takes you away from the moment, so to speak. And you kind of give way to unhappiness until the goal is fulfilled.
So to your point, man, and again, I guess you're right. This could go. This is so broad. It can go for anything. Reality, and the thing that kind of comes to my mind more often than not in an example, it shows that how we're so reactionary versus being proactive. And I think that setting intentions is a proactive type of thing, right? But expectations are reactionary. And so what I mean by that is using exercise as the example. Generally, summertime comes around, springtime comes around, and I hear everybody talking about I'm about to get summertime fine. Now, this is why I say it's reactionary. there is a time coming up and I want to fit within that time frame. And then not only that, now because I know this is coming up, I have an imaginary thought process of what I'm supposed to look like within this time, right? And that's an expectation versus an intention. And I think that when you try to flip that around and say, you know, try to be intentional and set intentions about things, it's more like, all right, there's no time frame that I have set for this specific goal, and there's no certain look that I'm specifically going for. What I want to do is I want to change my behaviors, change my habits in my life, and see where that leads me. And I think that's kind of where when you start to be proactive, you get from the reaction. Because I think all the expectations are reactionary, whether it's exercising, whether it's even a job. You know, you're working a job and you say, okay, I see this job because I want to make more money. So now I have to go and apply and do all of these things because I'm going to get this. And then when you go through your interview and they say, well, our cap is going to be $60,000. Now you're disappointed because it didn't meet whatever you expected. Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah. And the thing about intentions and expectations, they look exactly the same. Like I can say I intend to sell 1 million records by the end of this year. I can say I expect to sell 1 million records by the end of this year. And the reason we get caught up in the world of expectations is because that's what makes what we consider great businesses great. Like if you go to McDonald's, you expect every time this burger is going to taste the same, these fries are going to taste the same, these nuggets are going to taste the same. I don't eat McDonald's, but I'm just giving out that example. And like if you hear the stories of people go to Popeyes, there's no more chicken. It's Popeyes, how you don't got no more chicken? Like you expect that to happen, and now you're disappointed. But if you say I intend to go have a delicious meal at some place, and I intend this, like you allow for how do I say this? Pleasant surprise. It's like you're not fixated on one thing, so you can't be disappointed. You can only be the opposite. Like you can only be excited by what's to come because you like either you got what you intended to get or you got something different which turned out to be just as good.
You know what this makes me think about is my kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
Specifically my 5-year-old. And the reason why I say, and again, this is where the lines get blurred and you don't realize that you're not being intentional, but you're having an expectation. So my 5-year-old, he'll come into the living room and say, hey, dad or mom, can I have a snack? And we were like, well, what do you want? What kind of snack do you want? And he'll say, surprise me, right? So what that tells me is he's trying to be intentional, like, you know, whatever you give me, I'm gonna be okay with. But the reality of it is he still has an expectation. The reason why I say that is because we'll bring him something and he'll be like, I don't want that. We'll bring him something else and he'll be like, I don't really want that. So what is it that you want? You expecting something and you're not being intentional about just being happy with whatever you're given. And I think that's kind of how, again, when you say they run hand in hand, just being able to identify and separate. But I think that a lot of our expectation-driven mentality is based off of what we see. And it's the end result. We only see the end result. So when you use McDonald's as the example, like, of course, when I go to McDonald's, I expect to get a Big Mac the way that a Big Mac is supposed to be made. I mean, that's just what I expect to happen. But the reality of it is what's going on at McDonald's for that to happen is not always going to be the same. Right. It's not, but again, my expectation is based off of what I perceive to be an end result to be. Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, and the good thing about like you said, like expectation is future based. Intention is in the moment, and it's similar to we always talk about be purposeful. Be purposeful about what you're doing. Know why you're doing what you're doing, and intention is infused with that. Like again, we start off with the best of intentions. We say, okay, I intend to do this, but we back off. We let go in a sense of why we're doing things. We don't even know why anymore. We just go with the flow, which is a good thing, but only if you're happy in it. But sometimes you're being driven by that expectation where you're like, okay, I'm not going to be happy until this happens. Until I'm giving my all. I'm going to make sure I'm going to make it happen. I expect for this to happen. And then if it doesn't in that time that you expected, all is lost. Your world is over. You can't cope. You're like, what's going on? I did everything right. I did what they said I was supposed to do. I did this. Why is my life looking like this?
So let's go back for a second, right? setting the intentions to do something, right? And once you set the intention to do it, the expectation becomes the main focus of it all. And I think, like you said, a lot of times our expectation is not going to change. It doesn't fluctuate depending on where we are. But I think that a part of that is not being able to go back and say, what did I intend to? What was my intention? And it has my intentions changed, right? Like just trying to make sure that it even lines up with what I'm expecting anyway. But go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, well it can, because so the reason we so tied to expectations is it's kind of ego based. Like we believe that what we know of the world is the best thing possible. We believe we know everything there is to know. Now we know at the same time we don't know everything. We can't come close to it, but we like, this is what I need. I got to get it like this right now. But when you set that intention for, again, whatever you're trying to do, you're letting the window be open for something better. Like, for instance, you might have a goal like, I'm gonna make $10 today, and then you make $10. You expected it, great, but you could have made 10,000 if you would have just kind of let go of that expectation. You intended to do this thing, and it's important to stay in the moment of what you're doing or being or saying.
In that scenario that you just used, the $10 scenario, what would be a good intention? So that way you don't limit yourself or you don't box yourself in, but also allow yourself to not be disappointed no matter what the outcome would be. Like, what would be a good intentional thought process to that?
But even that, just not having the expectation of it, but just setting the intention of it. Like, I intend to make at least $10. Like, I'm doing this thing because I know, based on what I think I know at this moment, I intend for this to happen, and I'm going forth with this intention in mind.
So I think that's the key. So the reason why I asked that question is because that again shows the fine line between intentions and expectation. Because I intend to make $10 immediately turns into I expect. But I think that those details that you're talking about are important. Like, based off of, like you said, based off of what I know right now, right? Now, the reality of it is, once you get into something, your mind can change immediately. But because you don't have your intentions or the focus on what the intent is along the process, you can never reevaluate. And therefore, that expectation, like, it's crazy because I don't even want to call it an expectation, but it's kind of like a blurred line there. Go ahead, Jay.
But like, we don't realize we have thousands, maybe tens of thousands, maybe millions of expectations per day. Like, for instance, you drive from A to B, and you expect to have a nice smooth ride and get there and not be stuck in traffic, unless you've come to expect traffic. But what's your real intention? Your intention is, I want to get home safely. I want to get home and be able to relax safely. But you sometimes forget it. You get caught up in, I got to get this driver back because this driver cut me off. So now, I don't expect that he should have did that. So I have to do something about it. Like, you lost your initial intention of what you were doing. And so it throws off your day, it throws off your mood, it throws off your energy. And then you wonder, after the accumulation of this years later, you're like, why do I feel not so right? But it's because you let your expectations dictate how life should be instead of your intentions kind of show you what life could be.
Now, this will be my question for you too. And I 100% agree with you. And I loved all the stuff that you said. But what happens when you don't get home? Like, just wondering, just off the top, like, you have the intentions to get home safely, and then you go through this process where all of the traffic, like people being crazy, you're emotionally tied to everything that's going on, but then you just don't get home. And the idea here is like, well, part of the idea is avoiding the letdown of not achieving your intent, or the emotional disappointment that you would have, like, which will in turn rewind you to set you back to be more expectation focused versus intention focused. What do you say about that?
Well, so one, I don't think you can achieve an intention. Intention is just, that's that starting. Like, that's what gets you like, oh yeah, I intend for this, but I don't know for sure. We'll just see. But I'm gonna go full forth within this intention. So like you brought up, what if you don't get home? Your intention never changes. You're going to get home unless you decide to die. which I believe is the decision, but that's another story. But you're going to get home. It might not be on that day. It might not be this month. It might not be this. You're going to get home as long as you intend on when you go upon your journey for whatever day or you know what I mean? Like, or you may decide somewhere else is home. And so you also met your intention.
So I love it because again, what that further brings out, and that's what I was trying to get to, is like your intention, your expectation is tied is generally term driven. Like there are a whole bunch of terms that are applied to expectations. Like I have to get home in this certain amount of time with without having any traffic, without anybody cutting me off, without all of these, with the radio station not going in and out, and then I can be happy. You know what I mean? And I guess to your point, it's like no matter what obstacles are thrown my way, or no matter how I feel, as long as I don't get caught up in all of that detail, which again, detail matter, but those specific details, then my intentions and what I hope to essentially get in the end will be the happiness or the joy or the freedom or the peace of mind that I was looking for when I first set my intentions. Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, and to that, like with the intention, or with the car example, we don't realize how great that journey really is unless we're caught up in the expectation. I mean, for most vehicles, it's a controlled inside. Like you get to set the temperature. You get to have it. It could be a tropical paradise. It could be a winter wonderland. It could be whatever you want it to be inside of that. You get to choose the type of music or the type of atmosphere inside that thing. You can even roll down your windows and feel the air going against your face. Like it's so many cool things about that driving or even riding experience if you allow yourself to notice it. But if you're so caught up in the expectations, you're laser focused, like it's gotta be like this, it's gotta be like this. You miss all of that, and you only notice what isn't aligned with your expectation.
So would you say that, daily, most people that of course, and wake up and kind of walk into the day with expectations instead of intentions? I think so, because again, I think that, including myself, I'm not just going to try to put this off on other people, because there are certain aspects of my life I know that I'm expectation driven. And the reason why I know that is because to me, intentions are more about a lifestyle change versus a daily goal or a daily, requirement. And so there are things that, I think that people wake up on a daily basis and literally live their life expectation driven. What you think about that?
Yeah. I think it's a little of both. So like at the same time, you're intentional of some stuff, but then you get caught up in the expectation of it all. So like it is good, because I know we've even said this. I know I've said it. Have high expectations for yourself, but the key is like don't be tied to the expectation. And when you realize what that is, it's like nah, that's not the right thing to say. Like have high intentions, set high intentions for yourself, and go for it, because you can only go for an intention right now. You can only be that intention or do that intention right now. The expectation comes later. Like I expect this down the line, but that pulls you out of this great moment where you can do so much.
So I'm gonna go back to my workout analogy, or the way that I process it. So imagine, when I say wake up with the expectation driven mentality, like today I might wake up and say, okay, I'm gonna try to be healthy today. I'm going to get on my treadmill and I'm gonna run. And so, I can say that, and I can get on my treadmill and run, and then when I finish, I can be sick as a dog when I get off of that mud, right? And so, versus, I can wake up today and say, going forward, I'm going to live a more healthier life. And I haven't said that it's going to be the treadmill, it's going to be my food. It's just going to be every time I have an opportunity to do something that I've deemed within my own inner being to be a healthy practice, I will participate in, and regardless of what comes, I'm going to be okay with it. Which again, ultimately, hopefully, by me having the right intentions, I achieve whatever this goal is that I'm trying to achieve. Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah. But the thing to be wary about is you could have hidden expectations about that, right? So you would say, I intend to be healthy, but that means you expect that you're leading an unhealthy life already. You know, like you don't realize that back end because you wouldn't even have to say it, but you can intend to eat higher quality foods, for example, or high quality food, like but no tie to if you do or don't, because that's where we lose. Like some people might feel like if I didn't work out today, it's gonna mean this, is gonna mean that. Funny funny story. We have like a workout group mastermind, and I went on there and I was like, man, y'all, I had endless energy this morning at basketball, and I mean, I intended to just play it and just do as much as I can until I just can't anymore. But I had endless energy, and I was like, man, I didn't work out the week before. I just didn't have time. It didn't just work out for me to work out. But in my mind, I had an expectation of, if you don't work out, you don't have energy. If you don't do this, you don't do that. But yeah, I showed in my intention this morning that that's furthest from the truth. And it could be a lot of factors that played into that, but it doesn't matter. I was focused on my intention. So whether I had endless energy or not, it doesn't matter because I wasn't expecting anything anyway. I just followed my intention.
So I'm going to give you 2 examples of stuff that I know I've experienced myself when it comes to expectation setting, and where I think expectation setting is tied to giving up as well, right? Whether you intend to or not, right?
Yeah.
So as an example, I had an expectation at a time that I am going to do my Spanish work every single day. Gonna do that mud. No matter what, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do my one lesson every single day. And as I was doing it every day, there was a certain amount of energy that I felt like I was getting, like, oh, I did that. But on the flip side of it, there was also a certain amount of energy that it was like, it was pulling me away, like, you don't need to do that today. Like, oh my God, you got to do Spanish today. So I would have adverse forces pulling and pushing on me, right? Now, the expectation was just to do Spanish every day with no true intention behind it. Even though I know why I was doing it, I kind of lost sight of that along the process. And then the day when I think I was like, okay, I'm gonna do it before I was on like a 300-day streak, and I was like, I'm gonna do it before 12 o'clock, and then I missed it at 12 o'clock. And when I missed that that day, I was like, I failed, and I just literally flat out stopped doing that mug altogether, right? And it was like pulling teeth to get me to do it again because of me not living up to the expectation that I set for myself. Same thing when it comes to running, right? There's a time where it was, no matter what, I gotta hit it every day because that's what my expectation is, and that's the only way I'm gonna achieve whatever unrealistic goal that I had, because there was nothing true to a goal because it was only expectation. And then the day when I missed it, it's like a flat out fall off, in the past. And I think that a part of that is because we're so emotionally tied to the expectation versus the intention of, no matter what, I'm going to exercise as much as I can. Or, that's just kind of the way that I'll operate. And regardless if I do it or not, or no matter what, I'm going to do Spanish as much as I can, because I know that through time, I will potentially do whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that's kind of where, that fine line is. Go ahead, Jay.
Right. And that's the key. Like, again, intentions are right now. Like if you're making plans for the rest of your days, for every day, that's an expectation. Like you're leaving from right now. Like I can intend to have a great show right now because that's what I'm actively doing right now. That's the intention I set. Now, if I say I intend to have great shows every week, that's more of an expectation because I can't realistically set that intention yet. And so, yeah, that expectation is a hindrance more than anything, because now we fall victim to thinking we have to do this or else we look like a failure. We failed ourselves. We failed the people around us, which couldn't be furthest from the truth.
I love the fact that you literally just said, again, we were talking about how close the line is between intentions and expectations, but you just said intentions are right now. I love that because I can work out right now, but I can't tell you what my workout would equate to next week. And I think that is definitely a great way to look at it. And it's also a way to kind of bring yourself back home and ground yourself to make sure that you're maximizing what your true intentions are. You know what I'm saying? The reason why I got lost whenever I was doing Spanish or when I was running is because the only thing I could think about was the end result. And so like being able to focus on the details of, well, if I'm focused on running now, then I can look at the details of how my leg, like everything that comes along with cultivating, you know, your own perfection, right? And the same thing with Spanish, where I was so adamant about the expectation of just doing it. There were details about accents and, you know, which, you know, tenses and stuff you use, like all those little details kind of got beyond me, not because they were not important, but because I didn't take the time to really be intentional in those moments and think that I can just skip past it and accomplish something that wasn't unrealistic. But go ahead, Jay, my bad.
Yeah, no, you good. So something about last week, we had talked about, I can't remember the name of the topic, but we were just pretty much talking about our aims, like the directions we're headed in. And because we know, like, from time to time, things change, intentions change. And so that can also change the direction that we're going in. But the good thing about setting that aim and reminding yourself about it on a regular basis, you can then set intentions from that space. Because ultimately, like, you know the state of being that you want to be in, that you want to make decisions from. And just to give another example, like the decision of somebody who has a it's too hard attitude is different from the decision of somebody that can say, hey, we can figure it out. Like, that's a different kind of, you will set different intentions based on that state of being. And so you can still set your own state of being, but just make sure you remind yourself of that. So with that, when the time comes for you to set intentions for yourself, you can make it from the place that you actually want to make those intentions from.
So I'm going to tell you, this just, and this is something that I feel like I found to help me when it came to intentions and, I guess, expectations. Number one, I don't do this all the time, but I try to do this as much as I possibly can. A to-do list, right? And it's not the to-do, it's not what I guess it is a general to-do list. I don't know what other people's to-do lists look like. But literally, bro, on my to-do list, I would literally put down everything, no matter how important or how little it could be. It could be something like hang up my t-shirts, or, you know, I don't know. It's the smallest things that are tied to business and to life. And I think that the reason why I pointed out is because the days when I actually do decide to do it, the only thing that I think about are those things that's on the list. And I kind of lose sight of the world that I'm floating around in, because I think that a lot of times when you're not actually active too, you're thinking, and then you're forward thinking, and then you're also dreaming in a sense of what everything that you might have had intentions to do is going to lead you up to. Like it's plenty of times where I'm just sitting down and I'll be like, man, but when this happened, it's gonna pop out. And I think that, you know, me doing that list or that to-do list every day, it kind of keeps me in a mind frame of now. And not only that, when it comes to setting those to-dos, they can be all tied up to whatever that expectation is anyway, even though I don't want to get focused on the expectation. But you know that hitting these things along the line helps you ultimately achieve a goal. Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that, because earlier this week, my intention is just I want to have fun. I want to enjoy every moment as much as I can, but sometimes I do have to be reminded of that, because I forget that intention. Like, you would think I would remember that, but no, sometimes I'm like, wait a minute, I'm off. So I had the idea in the moment. Ooh, I want to list out my goals. I have all of these projects that I'm a part of that I want to do. I want to just get in my mind at least what's the one thing that if I accomplish this, you know, that which is kind of future-based accomplishment, that I accomplished this, I'll just be happy that I accomplished it. So I set it all out and I looked at it. I was like, I don't even know how to do a lot of the stuff that's on here, but that's cool. But, you know, I felt real good about putting my goals out in a way that I can see it. Now, where the pain could come from is if I'm hard on myself from not being able to achieve these, or for not achieving them ever. And like you said, like with the to-do list, I've done this millions of times where to-do list starts off with the greatest of intentions, but then it becomes a burden because I just keep adding stuff and adding stuff and adding stuff. None of it's getting completed. And I'm just like, dang, I gotta do all this. Life's not fun. All I'm doing is just checking off boxes. Like I lost my intention of being happy in the moment. And so it's important to just use it for what it is. Like if it makes you happy to write goals, write them. If it makes you happy to complete them, and that's the intention you set, complete them. But let that be a moment-to-moment decision based on your intention.
And I would also go along and say this too, like, and I'm glad that you pointed out. Funny is that with your intentions, you can actually set whatever that is to be happy in that. You know what I'm saying? No matter what it is, or you can set it to be serious in that. I know most people, when we go to funerals, they have their intentions set to be serious. Like, that's just, when I go to this, I got to be like this. So again, I say that to say that no matter which way you choose, you should always, if your goal is to be happy, you should, the emotional part of it, you should set your emotions to those intentions as well. And funny enough, I did goals for my team at the beginning of the year 2023. And when everybody sent me their goals and I gave them my feedback on it, one of the questions that I asked on every single goal that they had was, how can you make this fun? And the reason why I specifically asked that is because my team has kind of alluded to me that they want to be happy. I'm not going to try to make people be happy. They don't want to be happy, but they kind of alluded to me that they want to be happy. They also alluded to me that, the job can be kind of strenuous, or it could be hard. And so, the question that I would always ask is, how can you make this fun? So that way they could have responded to me, well, I'm going to do these things and I'm going to do this to make it fun. And so I think that, when it comes to setting intentions, your emotional intentions should be paid attention to as well. Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah. And with goals, there's a state of being involved with them that we might not always realize. So people, like, we have different reasons for achieving goals. Like, you might want to achieve a money goal so you can be wealthy or be free, if that's your definition of it. But that state of being is like, okay, can I be free or can I be wealthy without achieving this goal? And almost all the time, the answer is yes. And if you allow yourself to tap in that being, whether you achieve the goal doesn't matter. You're carrying that being with you, that beingness with you. And not only do you sense it and you can make decisions from that state of being, other senses as well. They're like, man, there's something about this person. This person is this or that or that. So I say this to say, like, when you're making goals or having expectations, even though I don't think you should set expectations, but if you do, like, be mindful of the beingness that's attached to it and see if you can just be in that state of beingness regardless of the expectation or goal.
So the question is then, how is it that you practice just being in that state of being and not, because again, everything in us, bro, is our eyes is looking outward. So we decide with every thought of an expectation for every single thing that we do. Like, almost simultaneously all the time. So again, aside from meditation, which I think is definitely the best way to go about trying to focus on now, like, what are other things that we could do to practice being in that state of being and not allow your mind to go to that next step? Because again, for me, it's almost instantaneously like, okay, so this is what I'm about to do this week. But this is what has to happen because I'm doing it. I'm only doing it because I've only set these intentions with expectation in mind. I guess that's the best way to say it.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, I mean, and the answer is in that question. Like, the intention you set is the form of creation. So I'll give an example using music and some of the ways I veered off and didn't. So sometimes I'll sit down with an intention, like, I intend to make a song about this, or I intend to make this type of song. And a lot of times it goes like that, and it's better than I can ever imagine. So when at times like that, where it's mediocre or better, if it's equal or better, I have so much energy. Like, I dream, it's like, wow, this is gonna be the greatest thing ever. People, I can just see how people feel it and they're gonna react to it and all of this. And I have all of this beingness of what I wanted had I achieved the goal of the million sold or whatever. But all I did was just create something. Now, like let's say I intend to create and it doesn't go according to plan. It's no harm, no foul, because I didn't have any expectations anyway. It's like, oh, okay, cool. But let's say I had an expectation where I got to make this type of song like this. Now, if I make it, if it's equal or better than what I thought, I'm not that joyful because it was like I expected it so much that it's not a miracle anymore. But then let's say I try to recreate it and it doesn't go the way that I expected. Now I feel bad. I'm like, did I lose it? Did I lose my talent? Have I lost all of this? Like what happened? If you don't use it, you look like I'm having all these negative thoughts. But it's the same situation in both, except one, I had no expectations, and another one I did. And if we can remember that, like everything will be a miracle and you will always stay in that energy, because it's like you really can't lose if you have no expectations. You can only win big because you set the intention and you can meet it or match it. And if not, you can learn something from it to bring it to the next intention.
So imagine I'm still working at Chase, and I decide today I'm gonna have a good day. Today I'm gonna have a good day. Is that an intention or expectation?
It depends.
All right.
So, right. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I mean, it depends on how you feel. Like I intend to have a good day. I'm walking in. I'm having a good day. Like it just is. That's my state of being. But I expect to have a good day. It's like I expect you to make my day happy.
Make my day good. Right. So and that's the point that I'm making. Like, I'm trying to point out those ideas so that way it's easier for us to recognize. Because the reality of it is, me saying that I expect to have a good day, I intend to have a good day. I'm also almost expecting it too, because the other forces I welcomed, right? So what you're saying is it's within you, which is what we talk about all the time. So when you set the intention, i.e. going back to me talking about, I'm going to exercise so that way I can be fine for summer, I could just say that I'm fine now and I'm just about to exercise. And it doesn't matter about the result. And I think that's the part that I want to point out, so that way we can start to internalize it and look at it from that standpoint and move in that direction. And because it's all going to be practice. You can decide that now before you actually make the move. And then in it, change, like your mind can change along the way. I can say, I'm gonna have a good day today. I'm gonna jump in my car, turn my radio up, not worried about nothing. I'm listening to my music. And as soon as I get to work, my boss looking at me crazy. And I'm like, why you got to mess up my day like that, bro? You know what I'm saying? He ain't even said nothing. But because along with my intention, I also had the expectation that everybody else was going to bend to my will. My boss was going to look at me a certain way when he saw me. And when he didn't, even though I didn't know that it was an expectation, now I'm looking like, oh, this dude tripping, man. And it messed up my day. Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, no, it's true. And I was thinking about the work ethic example when you were talking, because I've worked out with expectations and without. And when you do it with, it's harder. Like you think about, like, man, I'm gonna be sore. Like you expect a certain amount of soreness. You expect that, I don't know, like it's just so much pressure you would put on yourself when you have the expectation that, you know, if you don't work out, XYZ will happen, or that you have to work out, or blah, 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 like some kind of future-based thing. But when you don't, you can just have fun. It's like that freedom of movement. You're just enjoying it. You're like, man, this feels good. I get to move my body like this. Oh, wow, I didn't know I could do this with this much ease. Like you're discovering yourself. It's a difference because you're free of that expectation of that future burden.
You know, it makes me think about, and I know we've talked about this before, that like sometimes when things happen to people, especially when they know that they're going into what they deem themselves as a toxic place, and they say, ain't nothing finna mess up my day today, right? And then they go into it with the force of intention, like, I'm happy, I don't care what's going on. And in reality, that those people that they have been around that feel like could upset, you know, their mojo and per se, they don't even acknowledge it. And I think that is the prime example of what we're talking about when it comes to, once you set those intentions, the expectation is obvious in a sense. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, that mug is just going to be what it is. Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah. I'm glad you said that. A lot of people are toxic because people expect them to be. And if you release that expectation, you'll be like, man, this is a cool individual. This is a cool person. I expected you to be this way based on your appearance, based on your education, based on your affiliations. But when you let go of all those expectations, you're like, man, this is the coolest person I ever met. I'm so glad I got to be around you and meet you. And I apologize for expecting you to be toxic or XYZ.
So to that point, again, when expectations hinder you, right? Number one, you said, relationship wise, like you've limited yourself to what this person in your world, and I don't want to say provides you, but brings, because we all bring something to everybody's world. But not only that, when you set expectation, well, when you have expectations and they don't end up being exactly what you thought they were going to be. So going back to my to-do list, right? I now on my list, I literally just put anything, like put my socks on. Like I put everything just because I think I try to give everything the same level of importance because I'm trying to teach myself something different, right? But there's still sometimes where I expect a task to be harder than it actually is. And what I'll do is I'll continuously put it off for forever. It'll be the last thing that I do. And then when I finally decide to do it now, this is the craziest part about it. How the expectation has held like a cloud over my life is because the entire time I'm putting that mug off, I'm dreading it coming up. And I'm living in a state of like, I can't, I guess I got to do this mug now. And then I do it, and it was just like this for me to do it. And now I'm looking at myself like, what were you thinking about, right? And that's, again, where expectation is not truly what it is. Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah. So check this out about the power of intention. And just even to the example we gave of like relationships and stuff. So again, y'all know I'm a believer of God, of the divine, of everything. I think it's what connects us all. It's what we all have in common is God is within us. We are all made of that God essence. And so that's true because I love God. That means everyone and everything has that essence as well. And that if I truly love God, I would love everyone too. And I remember when I kind of had that realization, it's like, dang, but I don't love everyone. I judge a lot of people and stuff. So I had set an intention to start seeing the light in everyone and everything. And I forgot that I said that intention because it's habit now. It's part of who I am now. But in that intention, without the expectation, like I'm like in the intention, I'm gonna search for it. Like I might not see it immediately. I might not see the light that person has because they could be hiding it themselves. But because it's a continuous intention, I'm going to see it. And once I see it, it's like there is no expectation. They could do anything. It doesn't matter because I still see that light in them. So it's like, well, yeah, they just thought they were dark for a second in a sense. And it just changes things when you stay in the realm of intention versus expectation.
Now, I love that you pointed that out too, with the fact that you don't always see it at first. And the reason why is because you're somebody that I feel like have mastered that more than most people in my life. I know people that are trying to do it. Everybody, have intentions on trying to be more, loving and acceptance of people, regardless of what it is. But you're somebody that I feel like have mastered it so as close to perfect as possible for you. You know what I'm saying? But the beauty in you saying that you don't always get it or see it is proof to show that it requires effort. It requires consistency. It requires work. It requires you to, set the intention that every single time, regardless if I see it or not, I'm going to continue. Like you said, I don't know when I'm going to get home, but I know I'm going to get there. So no matter what, I'm just going to keep on trying to go, no matter what comes up in front of me, won't be emotionally tied to it. And eventually I'll achieve whatever that goal is. And, I pointed out because the reality is that when it comes to setting intentions and expectations, number one, it's not easily identifiable. It's not something easy to separate and see the difference unless you are intentional about doing that, or you're consistently putting forth an effort, even though you don't see the difference now, to eventually see it. Like, I know I can't see the difference between the intention and expectation in this, but I'm going to see it before I bust a move. I'm going to see it before I get emotionally tied. And I think that's a big part of it. Just having the intention to see the intentions. Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of life. Like we're all kids at heart, and with intention, it allows us to experiment. We're like, I intend for this. Again, I don't know what the results are, but I'm happy to try. Like the whole world says this, or if you're truly a kid, my parents say I can't do this, or whoever says the teacher say I can't do this. I want to do it, and I think that I can do it. I intend to do it, so I'm just going to set forth. But again, expectations. It's like it's that dark cloud. It's like I expected to succeed the first time I ever did this, and rarely people. It's rare for somebody to succeed, but sometimes people will follow a thread or a path because they did succeed that first time, and then it's a hard battle to get back to what they were to where they were, but they don't realize they didn't have that expectation the first time, and if you remove that expectation, you will probably get back to your intention just like that.
I would tell everybody to say why, question why all the time. My son, my 5-year-old, he doesn't know anything because he hasn't lived enough, right? He knows a lot, but I say that just to kind of come along with the show. Every single time he says, like, this kid asks me why for everything. It's not even stuff that I say that he can't do. It's even stuff like, Dad, they did this. Why'd they do this? And my answer is always like, I don't know. Like I don't know what anybody was thinking to do anything. But the reality is he's asking why is because he's trying to realize expectations in a sense or understand intentions in his own way. And I think that when you ask why enough times, you can always get back to what your true intentions are. Like you can have whatever expectations, but as long as you start to ask that why for every answer that you come with, I think that you can always find your way back to what your intentions are. And not only that, put yourself in a position to realize whether intentions that have been said are not the true intentions for me. Let me reevaluate. Your intentions might to be fun, and you might have chose something that your own mental makeup cannot process fun out of it. Now you can set intentions to make it fun, or you can set intentions to find something else that is fun, similar, or you can find something completely different in order to, facilitate what you're trying to accomplish in life. Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, and I think with that why, I think it really comes into play though when you find yourself in a situation that you really don't want to be in, and then you kind of like again, how did I get in this? Why? Why am I doing this? And you might have an answer for the why, but then you're like, well, why do I think I need that? Why? Like you can keep that going, but like when you're in a happy space, when you're in a good space, nobody stops to say why because it doesn't matter. It's like you're already in that state of being where you want to be. Like, go ahead.
No. Well, I was going to ask a question to that.
Yeah.
So would you say that when you're actually living up to the intentions that you've set for yourself, you should be happy, right? Like you wouldn't have. Oh, go ahead.
Well, it's more like the intention is the gateway to happiness. Because even in you're happy, you'll just receive intentions. It's not like you're setting them now. Like an intention will just come to you like, ooh, yeah, let's do that.
Right. So, and that's my point. Like there's no why in those moments because your intention setting has been accomplished. Yeah. Because, sometimes, at least this is the way that I'm thinking it, sometimes you can set an expectation with an underlying intention that you don't even recognize, right? But your expectation is driving you. Now, again, don't be expectation driven, but along the way, there's an underlying intention that's being met. So there's no reason to ask why, because ultimately the intention was to be happy in a sense, right? And you're actually happy. You don't have to ask that question why to change anything. Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, and that's the beautiful thing when you're in that flow and the intentions just come. Like somebody might present you with a situation that you've been in 100,000 times and you answered or did things a certain way, but in that one time you're like, what would happen if I did this instead? and you just do it. Like, again, you don't know, but it's the fun of it. And it's like your son trying to figure out like what drove people to do things. And sometimes the real answer, I mean, really is they don't even know. It's
Right.
Think about all the trouble we got to as kids, and they were like, "Why did you do this?" I don't know, and they mock us for saying I don't know. But the truth is, I didn't. I was fascinated in the moment. Something came over me. I wanted to see what would happen. And when we're in that flow, we are the happiest.
So that makes me think about running again and runner's high. Like when you're running, well, first of all, if you're a runner anyway, you always want your run to be easy. Like no matter what, like you just want that mug to be easy. And the funniest part about running for me is that that's my intention, for it to be an easy and enjoyable run. But I expect it to be like that from the very beginning. So whenever I jump on, there's always an expectation that makes everything that I'm doing hard or strenuous or mentally draining. And so what I have found is that when I get on again, my intentions are not in the right place, like in those moments. But once I just start running and forget about what the expectation was in those moments, you get lost in it. There's times where I'm just running and I don't even realize that I'm running anymore, because now the expectation of how and what and the way that it was supposed to go have been relinquished. And I think that's, the best definition of a runner's high is literally being out of your mind in a sense and being free. And so, I think about it that way because, I like to think that once you set your intentions, you free yourself from all those details that you feel and all of those boundaries that you set for yourself to just be able to do whatever it is and not have to worry about it. Go ahead, Jay.
Right, but only as long as you don't set expectations too. Because I was laughing when you were saying that, and I didn't realize it at the time. But when I run, I used to set intentions and expectations. So yes, I intend to have an easy, fun run, but I expect to break all records. I expect to run as faster than I've ever ran. I expect to go farther than I ever had. But sometimes when I'm running with that expectation too, it's no longer an easy run. It's a hard run. It's a struggle run. But go ahead.
Now, to that point, there have been times when I have set the expectation to get a runner's high, and I never got it. I never like because my mind was so wrapped up in trying to find something that I couldn't get there. I could never free myself to actually get into that mode. But the times when I haven't set that again, there are times when I've just got on and said, I'm just gonna run. I don't care, you know what I mean? And once I get into that, I literally get there. And now I'm mad at myself, later down the line, like, why can't I always get to this mud? But my expectations are what are the hindrance to me being in that place all the time. Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, and it was funny too. Like I remember when we was just daily running and stuff. I remember one time I came to y'all and said, "Man, I had my best run time ever," and it didn't feel like anything. But I can honestly say, like, I never looked at my time. I never looked at my pace. I was just going. I was like, if it's a slow run, it's a slow run. Like just whatever happens, happens. But I intend to just be in the flow, just to have fun doing it. And I had one of my best times. But when I'm expecting to have the best time, nah, doesn't always happen.
So if you can recall, there have been times when I ran my best times, and literally when I told y'all, I was like, this is what I did today. I don't plan on doing this tomorrow or the next day. I don't know when I ever do it again, because the day when I did those, I never intended for that to happen. Even one of the times I think I was running and I jumped on and was like, man, I'm on here for like 20 minutes. I didn't know I was going to do it, but I'm just doing it because I was free. But go ahead, Jay.
Right, and that's a perfect example. Like you have a high win rate when you just set intentions, because you would things that you didn't expect will happen. But then the problem is when we expect what happened at one time to expect all the other times. And unless we enjoy the process of being able to always meet our expectations, we shouldn't do it. Because again, like that's what makes good businesses. They can provide you with that expectation every time. They invested in figuring that out. But we aren't always with that across the board, but some things we are.
Now, so this just made me think about this from this standpoint right here. You said we're expecting the exact same result in a sense every time. But the part that we don't factor in is that all of the factors that lead up to that are not going to always be the same. Like you want the exact same thing every time, but everything else that comes, like the day when I ran for 35 minutes, what else did I do during that day? Was my day the exact same? And I think that's the good thing when you talk about like places like McDonald's or something. Like they created a process so that way, no matter what, they put this lettuce on first, put this on, so that way it turns out the same. But even in those situations where they have somewhat set the intentions so that way that they can reproduce the same thing over and over again, those other factors like who's working at McDonald's that day? How do they feel? Like, was the floor slick? Like, all of the elements are not, it's not going to always be the same. That's the reason why your expectation should not be where it's going to be the same, because all the other factors that come along with it or variables can change. Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong, again, with setting the intention to figure out that process to always get what you expect.
Yeah.
But with setting that intention, you're not tied to you're gonna meet that goal. You're just gonna see if you can. You're gonna try your hardest. You're gonna do everything in your current knowledge base and accumulated knowledge as you go down the process. But as long as you're not tied to the expectation of figuring out the expectations, you are good.
But I think that's the point that you made by that's what kind of makes a good business is I think that McDonald's, using them as an example, they have the intentions to make the perfect burger every time. But they have also come up with a process that if your burger is not what you want it to be, we'll give you a refund or we'll give you another burger, because they understand that there are factors that they cannot control. But guess what? We set stuff up, which is the goal, like, so that way we can produce it every single time, even though it might not happen. And we're going to be okay with it not happening, which is the reason why we have options for, if it doesn't. Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah. So yeah. And I love that. Businesses do have these plans because they know, like, you can't expect it every time. You can expect it a lot of times because we fixed the percentage and we're continuing to get a higher percentage based on the accumulated knowledge of having the idea, can I make the perfect burger or the perfect restaurant or the perfect system? So yeah, free yourself from the expectations. I know we getting low on that time, so I'll let you say some last words, Troy.
So again, I just want to say that, we're grateful for anybody that joined us today, because without y'all, we wouldn't be here. We definitely be doing something, but we definitely wouldn't be doing this. But any feedback, anytime you're on, you like the show, you share the show, it doesn't do anything but fuel what we're doing to help us realize our perfection and hopefully helping you realize yours. And, the reality of it is, like Jay said, free yourself from those expectations and let the intent lead the way. Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah. And similar to this real quick, like with the show, that's one of my intentions. Like I intend to give value. I intend to, not only to the audience, but to myself, and understand these concepts better. But I can't expect it, because sometimes people might be like, man, y'all talking nonsense. Or some people could be like, y'all talking truth, which is great. So either way, I'm free from that because I'm in the state of the intention. And I do appreciate all of y'all for rocking with us as well. You look like you want to say something else.
I just got to ask you a question, because when you said that, you just said, I have the intent to give knowledge, which I love that. But I almost felt like when you said it, that we could almost say that when you have intentions, it always happens. Like because regardless if people receive it as knowledge or not, you're still giving it. But anyway, that's just a whole nother topic that you got to talk about, man.
Right, yeah, because it's the being. It's all about the beingness more than the doingness or the sayingness or the thinkingness. But again, appreciate all y'all rocking with us. If you found this helpful, hit that share button, like it, subscribe, all that good stuff. And yeah, just remember, you're a perfect creation made by a perfect creator. So you might as well accept your perfection and enter perfect mode.
Yeah.
If I reminded you that you are perfect, would you argue me down or step into your perfection? Welcome to Perfect Mode, where there are no excuses, no expectations, and we explore the world without limitations. I'm JClay, rapper, the spiritual teacher, with my co-host Troy Washington, your friendly neighborhood realtor. Let's be real. So let's be perfect.
Perfect.